Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to this self-knowledge course. Today, we will explore a very interesting topic. We will go deeper into the real meaning behind a ritual practiced in many religious traditions, the ritual of baptism. The objective of this conference is to truly understand what baptism is and to grasp its esoteric significance. We will discover that baptism is, in essence, an esoteric ritual, something that must be experienced within the internal worlds. To begin, we need to clearly distinguish between exoteric and esoteric baptism. The exoteric form, the one performed outwardly on the physical plane, is only a symbol. It represents something far more profound that takes place internally and is directly related to the initiatory path. The sacrament of baptism, in one form or another, exists across many religious traditions. It is not exclusive to Christianity. Many religions practice it when someone enters their path. All religions contain two dimensions: the exoteric, which is public, and the esoteric, which is hidden. Within the esoteric circle, sacred texts are not studied in a merely external or literal way. Instead, they are approached from within, seeking the deeper meaning, beyond the letter that kills, to perceive the spirit that gives life, what is written between the lines, what the majority cannot perceive. Today, most religions have lost their initiatory tradition. However, they still preserve the external ritual of baptism. This outer ceremony is simply a representation of the inner baptism that must be carried out within our own inner world. In the past, these rituals served to awaken in sincere seekers the desire to understand their deeper symbolism. Those who developed eyes to see and ears to hear were quietly guided into the esoteric circle, where they received teachings aimed at awakening consciousness and leading them toward initiation. But over time, and with the degeneration of humanity, this deeper function has largely been lost. Baptism has become, in many cases, a formal act of affiliation, a way of becoming a member of a religious group, and establishing a psychological link with the forces that govern those institutions today. So then, what is baptism in its true sense? Baptism is a pact of sexual magic, a commitment of a sexual nature. It is a ceremony through which the individual establishes an agreement with the inner God, a commitment to later practice sexual alchemy. If, later in life, that person fulfills this pact, then the ritual will have had true value. If the pact is not fulfilled, then it becomes meaningless. Receiving the sacrament externally is of no use without honoring the inner commitment. What is the purpose of taking an oath if it is not lived? This leads us to a profound conclusion. The salvation of the human being lies in sex and in the spinal cord, and anything outside of this path is ultimately a waste of time. In the ritual of baptism, water is poured upon the head of the one being baptized. This symbolizes that the waters must rise toward the head through the work of sexual transmutation. This is the essential key of baptism. Only by working with the pure waters of life can one return to the paradisiacal state of Eden. For example, the baptismal font found in Christian churches represents both the philosopher's stone and the creative organs. Within it is placed the lustral water, known in alchemy as mercury, which symbolizes the sacred sperm. The flame of the candles represents the sulfur of the alchemists, the fire that is released through the elimination of each psychological defect. When the one who is baptized knows how to consciously unite mercury and sulfur, the second birth is achieved and entry into the kingdom of heaven becomes possible. However, if there is no inner work with mercury and sulfur, then baptism remains an empty act without real value. The true consummation of baptism takes place within the sacrament of marriage, through the practice of sexual magic. It is in the first conscious sexual act that the marriage pact is truly sealed. To unite sexually with another person is, in essence, to establish a bond of marriage with that person. From that moment, the individual must begin the work of mastering the inner waters. This requires psychological death, the elimination of all defects related to fornication, so that no sexual fall occurs, and so that the energy may rise through the spinal column in the process known as the transmutation of the waters. Those who work with discipline, cultivating chastity, and who practice suprasex with a stable partner in fidelity, chastity, and love will live this process within their internal worlds. They will witness the transformation of their inner waters, from black to white, from white to yellow, and from yellow to red, until the sacred fire is finally ignited. As we studied in the conference on initiation and the trials, the individual who advances through this purification of the waters will be tested by the trial of fire. If this test is successfully overcome, the initiate receives, in the internal worlds, a sword, a symbol that confirms their status as an initiate. This indicates that the sacred fire has been awakened within the spine, and from that moment on, the energy that ascends through the spinal column begins to condense, vertebra by vertebra. At the same time, the regeneration of the physical and vital bodies begins, since these two are intimately connected, the vital body being the energetic foundation of the physical body. At first, the two serpents rise together to a certain degree. Then the serpent of the vital body pauses, while the serpent of the physical body continues its ascent until it is fully raised. When the 33 vertebrae are completely filled for the first time with this condensed energy, the first initiation of the major mysteries is accomplished. The first serpent has risen, and the physical body is regenerated. It is at this point that the process known as the baptism of water truly begins. It is important to understand that baptism is not a single act, but a process. It begins with the completion of the initiation of the physical body and concludes with the completion of the initiation of the vital body. Once the first serpent has fully risen, the serpent of the vital body resumes its ascent, and its completion takes the same duration as the entire initiation of the physical body. Thus, the baptism of water occurs after the creation of the solar physical body and continues until the solar vital body is fully completed. We must also understand that there are 3 types of baptism: the baptism of water, the baptism of fire, and the baptism of light. The baptism of water corresponds to the first mountain. It is directly related to the completion of the solar vital body. The baptism of fire, which corresponds to the second mountain, is related to the completion of the vital body of gold, and it is symbolically represented by the beheading of John the Baptist. John declared that he baptized with water, but that after him would come one who would baptize with fire. With these words, he was referring to the Christ, the inner and universal fire that is born and developed within us through the work of the second mountain. The baptism of light is the true baptism. It is directly related to the second birth and to the creation of the bodies of light on the third mountain. These are the vehicles that allow our inner being, our Father who is pure light, to unite completely with us. At the moment when the Father descends and merges with the human being, the true baptism takes place. In that instant, self-knowledge is attained. We become one with our real being, and our consciousness awakens 100%. Let us remember that the work leading to the fulfillment of the great purpose of our existence requires that we work wisely with our sexual energy in order to recover our lost power. Only by working with the pure waters of life can we return to the paradisiacal state of Eden. And with this, we conclude today's conference. I invite you to reflect deeply on its meaning. In the next 3 conferences, we will explore the mountains of initiation, the 3 great stages of inner work required to achieve the intimate self-realization of the being. In our next lecture, we will study in detail the process of the first mountain. Do not miss it. Until next time.